What is up, everyone? Brian Zane here to give you my predictions for this weekend's big SummerSlam Premium Live event happening this Saturday in Detroit, Michigan. Very excited for this card, pretty much top to bottom. I think there's potential for each of the matches to seriously over-deliver. There's going to be a couple of contenders for match of the year, I'm just going to guess, on this show, because on paper a lot of these matches look really incredible. And the build, I think, for the whole card has been really solid, just kind of top to bottom. Let's begin with the recently announced Slim Jim SummerSlam Battle Royal. I heard Slim Jim recently signed this very lucrative sponsorship deal with WWE. So, what's old is new again. Full circle, Slim Jim is back in the WWE fold. You love to see it. Maybe they'll run those Randy Savage ads in perpetuity. As far as who's going to win this thing, I mean, there's no real stakes in this matchup that I can tell. There doesn't be any kind of stipulation, who's going to get what if they win. I think that this is LA Knight's match to win, honestly. No one else I can tell has been announced for it that I can tell. And it's just this is LA's match because he has been kind of knocking on the door for a long time. Clearly not involved in any big creative plans, it would seem, in the short term. But as someone, who had that big moment at Money in the Bank and didn't get that win, I think for him to get a win in a Battle Royal like this would be huge for him, and the fans would love it. And if this is an opening match kind of thing, it'd be a great way to get the fans just ready to go for SummerSlam if LA Knight wins here. Ronda Rousey takes on Shayna Baszler in a grudge match. Of course, it was at Money in the Bank where Baszler just turned on her partner and best friend, Ronda, in the middle of their tag title matchup here. The build for this is one of my favorite builds for the whole card. I think hearing Shayna and Ronda explain their sides of the story in this week's Raw and the recap they had, their sound bites and everything, the bitterness that Shayna Baszler has felt kind of coming up as a supposed up-and-comer, even though she had more MMA experience than Ronda at the time they met, and how Shayna's had to fight and claw for everything while Ronda was handed these opportunities and whatnot. I think it's just a really well done story here, and it makes a lot of sense for why Baszler did what she did in turning on her. This, again, seems like kind of an easy one to predict. Ronda, by all accounts, is on her way out of WWE, and so for her to put over her really good friend Shayna on her way out seems like the right call, so I would not be surprised if Shayna wins this one and hopefully goes on to some bigger things. Well, this week I put out a video asking the question, who was Mr. SummerSlam? But some people would argue that one of the people in this next matchup could easily win the title of Ms. SummerSlam, as Charlotte Flair is currently undefeated at that show and could go 6-0 if she wins this triple threat match for the Women's Championship, Asuka defending against Charlotte and Bianca Belair, who Asuka beat for the belt. I like each of these ladies' chemistries with each other in singles matches over the years, and I think that with all three in the mix, this could be a potential for a great matchup as well. I don't believe Charlotte's going to win this one. I know she just came back and, of course, is immediately inserted into a title picture. That kind of seems to be just the MO for Charlotte in the last couple of years, it feels like. But I feel that this is going to be a match where Asuka's going to look really good in the end and come out the victor. Logan Paul battling Ricochet in singles action here. The seeds for this were planted at the Royal Rumble earlier this year, that incredible moment where the two springboarded and collided into each other. And considering how viral that spot went, I am going to imagine there's going to be no fewer than 4 or 5 similar moments that will go viral in this match alone. I think Ricochet and Logan are going to be perfect opponents for each other because it's all very spot heavy, very big on the high flying aspect, and Ricochet has that experience to really help Logan Paul, the more inexperienced Paul, to a good match, an exciting match, as it were. So I think this is going to be one for Logan to win. The last several matches Logan Paul has had, he's been kind of like the fall guy. As the inexperienced one, he can talk a big game and then get beat in a match, like we saw, Money in the Bank, and we saw at WrestleMania with Seth Rollins. So I think this is going to be the match where he gets a big win, and I think Ricochet is one of those guys where he can afford to lose, because Lord knows Ricochet wasn't doing much leading up to this in the grand scheme of things, and I think Ricochet's great, but I think he's going to be a good fall guy, so to speak, to help put over Logan. Gunther defends the Intercontinental Championship against the returning Drew McIntyre. I am so ready for this matchup here. If it's anything like the battle they had at WrestleMania, the triple threat with Sheamus, if it's anything like the matches Gunther and Sheamus had in singles action, reaction, then this one could be a jarring match to watch. I think the fans are at risk of getting secondhand concussions watching this thing, and I think it's going to be a really fun one to watch. My gut feeling tells me that Gunther is going to retain. I don't think that streak with the Intercontinental Championship is going to get broken anytime soon. I do believe he's going to break the Honky Tonk Man's record, as sad as it might be for some, but I think it's time. Some records are meant to be broken, and I think that it's time for the Honky Donkey Man's entrance, or his record, I should say, as the Intercontinental Championship to be snapped by Gunther, and it continues with a win over Drew at this show. Cody Rhodes and Brock Lesnar will face off in the third match in their trilogy this weekend. You would hope there'd be some kind of stipulation attached to this one to really differentiate it from the previous two matches. Lord knows we could use something like that, considering, we're still months out from when this feud first began, and we still don't know why they're fighting. Like, Brock has never really made his idea known as to why he wants to fight Cody, why he beat him up the night after WrestleMania. We don't know, and I don't think we're ever going to get an answer at this point. So you got to make up for it by having some kind of sizzle with your steak, have some kind of stipulation, have a strap match, have a cage match, do something, to make it different. As far as who's going to win this one, I think Cody's going to be the one to come out on top here, continuing his story that is still unfinished because the story never ends. But I think that if, you're going to keep Cody looking good going into the rest of the year, doing whatever he's got going on, then I think a win over Lesnar is going to accomplish that. Lesnar is, of course, I'm not going to say where he ranks in the Mr. SummerSlam video, but he's pretty high up there. And so I think for Rhodes to beat Lesnar in this matchup would be a fine feather in his cap and would just be a great SummerSlam moment. I just wish there was some kind of stipulation or something. The winner gets something after this. Seth F. Rollins defends the World Heavyweight Championship against Finn Bálor in a rematch from Money in the Bank, and a lot of intrigue surrounding this one because Damien Priest, fellow Judgment Day member, has the Money in the Bank briefcase. There's a lot of people who think that Damien should turn it into a triple threat, maybe steal the championship from under Finn's grasp that way. Or maybe the idea of Finn kind of winning the match, getting his win back against Seth from SummerSlam all those years ago, only for Damien to cash it in and beat him for the belt. There's a lot of different ways you could go with this one, but I don't know if they should, because I was talking about Money in the Bank in that review, how odd I found it that they're already kind of like putting the wheels in motion for a Judgment Day breakup so soon after a Bloodline breakup. And considering the run that the Judgment Day is on, they are kind of like the big bad heel stable with all this heat. It would be very silly, I think, to break it up still. And so at this point, so that's something I think you could still milk for a very long time before you actually pull the trigger on that. So I don't believe Priest is going to cash in. They're going to tease the hell out of it in this matchup, but I don't think it's going to actually happen. As far as who I think is going to win, my gut is telling me Seth is going to retain here because I think that's a reign that deserves to go a little bit longer at this point. Finally, in a tribal combat match for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship and the recognition of Tribal Chief, Roman Reigns defends against his cousin Main Event Jey, a one-on-one rematch from all the way back in the pandemic days, the Thunderdome era, as it were. And of course, who could forget what happened last month at Money in the Bank when Jey beat Roman in that Bloodline Civil War match, the first loss that Roman had suffered in years. I said back in my review of that show that honestly, no matter what happens in this championship match, by the way, Roman retains, no matter what happens in this championship match, the fact that Jey was able to beat Roman and break the unkillable mystique of Roman Reigns, that's the big story. That's going to be the feather in his cap. I think it'd be cool. It'd be a cool story if Jey was the one to beat Roman. Obviously, I don't think his reign would be very long. I think you could have an interesting run with him as Universal Champion and really have an interesting experiment as to what this traditionally tag team wrestler would do with the Universal Championship. There's rumors that Roman's not advertised for the next few pay-per-views, so it seems that maybe that's a way of saying, oh, maybe Jey's going to win and he's going to be the champion. But I still don't believe that Roman's going to give the belt up just yet. I don't believe that Jey is going to get 2 whopping consecutive victories against Roman on pay-per-view. It's just too good to be true, and it's going to be a heartbreaker, this matchup here. But I do believe that Roman, by hook or by crook, is going to end up winning this matchup, retaining, still being the tribal chief, and then who knows where the Usos go from here, but I don't think it's Jey's to win. It'd be really cool, but in my heart of hearts, in my gut, I just don't believe it's going to happen. But those are just my humble picks, folks. What do you think is going to happen this weekend at SummerSlam? I want to hear your predictions in the comment section below. And as always, I will see you on the other side with my SummerSlam review a couple of days after the pay-per-view at least. Sadly, I will not be able to watch the show live. I'll have to watch it like a day or two later. I'm going to try my best to get it a review ready and out for you early in the week. I appreciate your patience and understanding. But hey, you know what? A lot of my pay-per-view weekends lately have been blown up for a variety of reasons, but it's the summer. What can I say? So I thank you for your patience, and do look out for that review coming out sometime early next week. But until then, folks, I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.